I squatted on the street, blowing in the cold wind, holding a Ruggiemo in my hand and taking a big bite. A man and a woman came out of the Western restaurant opposite. The man was wearing a black nylon windbreaker and smiling gently. The woman was wearing a white collared overcoat and behaved gracefully. They were far apart and said goodbye with smiles. I stood up, threw the Ruggiemo into the trash can, and wiped my mouth carelessly with my hand. After the two people in the distance said goodbye, the man noticed me and walked towards me. When he walked beside me, he smiled at me. "Have you been waiting for a long time?" he asked. I shook my head. "I just arrived." Actually, I had been waiting for 2 hours. I had been blowing in the cold wind for 2 hours and my feet were numb. He took me back to the car. It was very warm inside. I looked out of the car window, fidgeting with the window button, and asked casually, "Did it work out this time?" He held the steering wheel with his hand, glanced at me, and didn't say a word. I had to talk to myself. "It's quite good." Afraid that it sounded insincere, I added, "She seems gentle and virtuous. She suits you." He smiled but didn't respond to my words. When we got home, I kicked off my shoes and went to take a shower. My feet were frozen cold and only felt better after touching the hot water. When I came out of the bathroom with my hair in my hand, he was reading a book. He studied law and the books in his hand were always thick. He glanced at me, curled his lips and said, "Come here, I'll help you dry your hair." I didn't refuse. I walked to the sofa and sat beside him. His big palm gently ruffled my hair, like the spring breeze, making me feel warm. The scent of his body came from his neck, and I swallowed hard. "Shall we do it tonight?" I blurted out subconsciously, but this question was really inappropriate. I lowered my head and quickly added, "If you're with her, it's okay if you don't do it with me anymore." He turned off the hairdryer and ruffled my hair. Before I could react, his kiss had already landed on me. It was an ungentle kiss. He bit my lips and took off my clothes. While doing it, we found that there wasn't enough space on the sofa, so we had to roll onto the bed. After it was over, he carried me to the bathroom and cleaned me up bit by bit. I leaned in his arms. With the steam rising, my mind became hazy. I knew I was about to fall asleep. Subconsciously, I grabbed his hand and asked him, "Hey, did you get together with her?" I asked again, "Are you two together?" I could hardly keep my eyes open. Before falling into a dream, I heard him say, "Go to sleep, it's nothing." I thought I would have a good dream tonight. My name is Oliver, and his name is Henry. I first met him in the second year of senior high school when I transferred to the key class. Henry was the class monitor. He helped me get textbooks and fill out forms. He did all the trivial things for me. He was quite gentle and popular. His name always topped the ranking list. He was a perfect all-round student and an excellent class cadre. But I was quite annoyed with him because his smile seemed fake. The classmates in the class don't like me and ostracize me, but I'm not angry. However, Henry always tries to smooth things over for me. He is kind to everyone. Being kind to everyone also means not being truly kind to anyone. He always looks like a gentle and obliging good guy every day. I just can't bring myself to like him. It's understandable that the boys in the class hate me. I'm called Shimin Ching of Shenzhen Middle School because I love to change girlfriends. Sometimes I have a new one every week, and sometimes every month. As long as a girl comes to me, I'll agree. When I meet an open-minded girl who asks me to sleep with her, I'll also nod. Because of my good looks, I've become a commodity for girls to compete over. "I've been with Oliver" has become a slogan for some people to boost their own status, and they're very proud when they say it. This has made me notorious in school, but few people know that I've ever refused someone. Once there was a girl from an ordinary class who chased me for a long time and always bought me breakfast, but I never agreed. One day in the corner of the stairs, she summoned up the courage to confess her love to me. I refused. The girls I'm with just mess around with me. We don't talk about feelings. But this girl was sincere. I couldn't agree to her. She cried and asked me if it was because she wasn't good looking. I shook my head. I said, "You're very good. It's me who doesn't deserve you. Don't judge by looks. Even someone good looking can be a scoundrel. So don't like me. You should go and like someone better." She seemed to understand but also not really. She stopped crying and turned around to leave. I propped my hand against the wall and squatted at the stairway. Just now, I was talking about myself. I've been living a dissolute life. I'm a scoundrel. Turning my head, I happened to see Henry sitting at the stairwell with a test paper in his hand. I didn't know how long he had been listening. He wasn't embarrassed at all. He smiled and greeted me as if we were very familiar with each other. I was already in a terrible mood. Seeing his attitude, I frowned and scolded him directly. "Henry, you're so fake." After that, he acted as if nothing had happened. The male classmates in the class liked to trip me up when playing ball. They deliberately bumped into me or reported me to the teacher. The more childish ones even threw away my homework. I didn't care, but Henry still spoke up for me. I really couldn't understand what he was up to. That week, it was the election for outstanding class cadres again. Everyone in the class voted for him. The girls thought he was good, looking, and gentle. The boys all said that Henry was so kind-hearted that he even defended someone like Oliver who spoiled the school spirit. Standing on the podium, the teacher couldn't help praising him in front of the whole class. Henry smiled while helping the teacher carry the homework. He said to the teacher in front of the whole class that he didn't have any special abilities and it was all thanks to the classmates' care. After he finished speaking, the whole class stared at him with admiration in their eyes and liked him even more. I just wanted to take off my shoes and throw them at his face. Later, I was fortunate enough to tear off his mask. That time, the school leaders came for an inspection, and the grade needed to put on a performance. A group of us boys were selected to perform a cheerleading dance. For this rehearsal, we didn't even have classes, and even our time for eating and sleeping was squeezed. When I was young, I disliked three things the most: rigid rules, the false affection between people, and this kind of formalism. So, within a couple of days, I sent a complaint letter to the principal's mailbox. I found a cream-colored complaint letter in the mailbox. The main idea of the letter was the same as mine, and it was also well-reasoned. I marveled at the author's strong and powerful handwriting and also at his excellent literary talent. The next day, I went to the mailbox again. After I dropped my letter, I stared blankly at the boy around the corner. It turned out to be Henry, holding a beige envelope in his hand. This good student actually wrote a complaint letter. I didn't like him very much and was reluctant to believe that the just and honorable letter was written by him at first. Finally, I stepped forward to stop him and confirm with him. I just blurted out, "Hey, Henry, was it you who wrote that letter yesterday?" A flicker passed through Henry's eyes for a moment, and he smiled at me. Then, he suddenly pushed me against the wall. It hurt my shoulder badly. His cold fingertips pressed against my neck. Although there was a smile on his lips, his eyes were full of warnings. "Oliver," he called me, his voice cold. "If a third person finds out, don't blame me for getting angry." His voice came from beside my ear, and the hand on my neck was ice cold. After he finished speaking, he gently ruffled my hair and smiled at me. I swallowed hard. Judging from his expression, I was quite sure that if I revealed the secret, I would definitely end up badly. Actually, I didn't intend to tell anyone. I'm not the kind of person who likes to gossip about others, so this matter was over. I continued to date my girlfriends and muddle through life. He continued to be a good monitor and win awards. We were like two parallel lines. I thought we would never have anything to do with each other again. Unexpectedly, in order to separate the couples in the class, the teacher made a major rearrangement of the seats. Henry and I became desk mates. When I carried my books to Henry's side, he was wiping my desk. He wiped off a layer of dust and then looked up at me and smiled. Several boys around gave me dirty looks secretly with bad attitudes. I wasn't annoyed either and sat down generously. Since the chance encounter at the mailbox last time, I've had a different view of Henry. No matter how fake he is, at least like me, he dislikes formalism. We can be considered kindred spirits. On the first day as deskmates, I didn't talk to him. But since we're deskmates, it's impossible not to have any communication. On the morning of the second day, when I was biting my pen doing a chemical inference question, I accidentally noticed that Henry had already finished that day's chemistry homework. I hesitated for a moment but still took the initiative to approach him. I gently tapped on his desk with my finger, threw the test paper at him, and pointed at that perverted chemistry question. "Hey, Henry, help me take a look at this question." Henry smiled at me, then tore off a sticky note and carefully wrote something on it. I knew that due to his helpful persona, Henry would definitely help me. He gently placed the sticky note on my desk. I casually thanked him. As a result, it was written on the sticky note, "Don't bother me." I was furious. I immediately crumpled up the note and forcefully threw it at him, scolding him. He looked back at me with a smile, then ignored me and continued doing his homework. I got even angrier. I vigorously tore up the scratch paper and threw the paper balls at him one by one. He ignored me as if I were air, with a smile on his lips, concentrating on his homework. At this time, several girls passed by and whispered secretly, "Is Oliver bullying the class monitor?" Their voices were neither too loud nor too soft, just loud enough for me to hear. I was so angry that I was fuming. I tore the paper even faster and pounded him with the paper balls, until someone patted me on the shoulder. I turned around and saw the class commissary for general affairs standing behind me with her arms folded. She was furious. "Oliver, throwing paper balls around. You're in charge of the cleaning this week." After the class commissary for general affairs left, I heard a soft chuckle. When I turned around, I saw Henry slightly raising the corner of his mouth, looking a bit sly. After that day, I moved my desk outward to keep a distance from Henry's and didn't talk to him at all. In November, the school held a sports meeting. Our Class 1 and Class 2 were rehearsing on the playground at the same time. The monitor of Class 2 asked for leave due to something. After Henry arranged the formation of our class, he had no choice but to help Class 2 with their rehearsal. After the rehearsal, I went to the men's restroom to relieve myself. There were also several boys from Class 2. They were grumbling and complaining about Henry. We didn't need to rehearse originally. That Henry is just showing off. Helping us arrange the formation is just for his own good reputation. He thinks we'll thank him, said a tall guy. Exactly. Getting the first place is so great? Those girls are blind, someone echoed. I walked to the urinal and bumped into the tall guy hard. He staggered from the impact and peed on his hand. Who are you? Oh, it's Oliver. The tall guy grabbed my collar. Frowning, I said, you got the benefits and then turn around and scold others. You're really despicable. Although I also annoyed Henry. One thing is one thing. I judge things objectively. After I finished speaking, I pushed the tall guy hard, washed my hands, and turned around to leave. As soon as I came out, I found Henry standing at the toilet door. I ignored him and continued walking forward. But Henry suddenly grabbed my arm. He smiled, took a step forward, leaned over and whispered in my ear. What? Suddenly speaking up for me. Did you know I was at the door? For a moment, I was so angry that I gritted my teeth. Henry is such a person. He is insincere to others and speculates about others' good intentions. I pushed him hard, stamped my feet in anger, and stared at him. Henry, you're so annoying. I really hate you. After I finished speaking, I clenched my fists and turned around to leave. After I calmed down, I secretly swore that if Oliver, ever spoke another word to Henry, I would change my name to Win Henry. Just a few days later, I became Win Henry. After the sports meeting comes the mid-term exam. And after the mid-term exam comes the parents' meeting. Henry still ranked first in the total score, but he performed poorly in Chinese and dropped out of the top 10 in the grade. When I was folding a paper airplane with my own test paper, I glanced at him inadvertently. He was seriously analyzing the Chinese test paper, with his brows slightly furrowed, carefully correcting it with a red pen. I rarely saw him without a smile. I stared directly at him and forgot to look away. After Henry noticed my gaze, he looked at me expressionlessly with a cold look in his eyes. I whispered a curse and ignored him, continuing to fold my paper airplane. What's he so angry about? It's just that he lost a few points. I really don't know why he is so hard on himself. After school, parents came into the class one after another. Several girls greeted me and invited me to go singing. I preferred to be alone, so I refused. One of them trotted over and asked me if I would go to the Old Street on the weekend. The Old Street is a street full of hotels. She made an appointment with me on the time and then left with a smile. After the girls left, I stood alone in the school's small garden and dialed the familiar number on my phone. I couldn't get through. I dialed the phone again and again. On the 19th try, she answered. Mom, the parents' meeting, I said concisely, afraid of wasting her time. I'm busy, she said lazily. There was noise on the other end of the phone, and the voice of a strange man came through. Don't be too busy. Don't end up in the wrong bed. I tried to remind her and stop her from having an affair. She made it clear directly. I broke up with Uncle Lou you met last time yesterday. But there's a new one. I'll introduce him to you next week if we're still together. After she finished speaking, she hung up the phone. There was a busy tone in my ear, and I put down the phone. My left hand hurt badly. Only then did I realize that I had torn off the zipper of my school uniform. I cursed under my breath and then squatted on the ground with my arms hugged. When I was 13 years old, something happened to my family. My father had an affair and had a child with that woman. He abandoned me and my mother. Since then, my mother has changed and become what she is now. She no longer cares about me. After I entered high school, I also changed. She parties every night, while I live a dissolute life. My father left freely, leaving behind two lost fools. Actually, I miss my mother very much, the gentle and considerate her. Actually, I miss my father very much. And those warm days, I squatted in the small garden of the school, tightly holding my phone in my hand. A woman's voice came from beside my ear. I slightly raised my head. There were two people standing in the small garden, a man and a woman, a mother and son. The woman's voice was choked with sobs, and her son gently supported her. The woman wiped away a few tears. Look at you. How can I report your grades to your father? I showed him the certificate of an outstanding cadre you got. but he said that the son of that woman also won an award. Look at your terrible Chinese score. The son of that woman scored 130 points. The more she spoke, the more excited she became. When you go to college, choose a major like law. Your father can still get promoted. If you follow him, you can get a lot of benefits. Your father knows so many well-known people. He can introduce you to a girl from a prominent family. Son, then you'll have a smooth career. Your mother and I are always being gossiped about and called a mistress. But as long as you achieve a high position, who can say anything about me? If you become successful, your father won't always mention that woman and her son. Mom knows you're tired, but for my status in the family, can't you strive for success? The more I listened, the more uncomfortable I felt. Every family has its own hard-to-read scriptures. There are too many people in this world who are more miserable than me. Through the gaps between the branches, I met the boy's eyes. What a small world. It turned out to be Henry. I had an indescribable feeling in my heart. Sure enough, every hateful person must have something pitiful about them. Henry smiles every day, playing a false role and living for his mother. I wonder if he's tired. At this moment, Henry also saw me. He glanced at me, then gently stroked the woman's back and whispered something in her ear. His mother nodded and turned away. Only the chirping of cicadas remained in the garden. Come out, he said in a tone devoid of emotion. I propped my hands on my knees and slowly stood up. Henry calmly walked towards me. When he got closer, he suddenly grabbed my collar, gave me a hard shove, and pushed me forcefully against the tree trunk behind me. My waist hit the bulge of the old tree, and it hurt like fire. Henry's lips still curled up, but his eyes were ice cold. He tightened his fingers on my collar, leaned close to my ear, and said mockingly, "Do you like eavesdropping?" At this moment, my waist was hurting badly. I was gently rubbing my lower back and didn't have time to explain. The smile on his lips slowly faded. What? Are you gloating? Oliver, do you know that you're also very annoying? You mess around with girls every day. You're really despicable. My waist ached more and more, and my chest felt increasingly stuffy. I looked down and saw the call log on my phone screen. I only talked to my mom for 40 seconds. This number tore at my heart. I bit my lip. I'm not gloating. Really. I heard my voice gradually start to tremble. Henry, you're right. I'm also very annoying. I'm despicable. Henry, I really didn't gloat. I paused for a moment, and my emotions gradually welled up. With a pop, I swung my arm and forcefully slapped away his hand that was tugging at my collar. Henry, why are you so angry? My dad also had an affair, and my family is also in a mess. Are you the only one who's miserable? You still have your mom to attend parent-teacher meetings for you. I don't even know where my mom is dead. It wasn't my intention to eavesdrop. You're so annoying. You're insincere to others and think everyone else is a jerk. Henry was stunned. He stood in front of me motionless, even looking a bit at a loss. I thought his stupid look was a bit funny, but I didn't laugh because I saw water droplets falling from my chin and hitting the ground. I reached out and touched my face. It was wet. I was crying. This was so embarrassing. I quickly wiped my eyes hard with my sleeve, trying to pretend that nothing had happened, probably because I don't usually cry. There was more and more water on my face, and my eyes were like an open sluice. My nose was sore and very stuffy. I could hardly breathe. I tilted my chin up at him. Hey, Henry, do you have any tissues? I heard my awful voice, with a strong nasal tone and a thick sob in it. Henry finally came to his senses. He still looked dull, then fumbled around on his body in a hurry and handed me a pack of tissues. I took the tissues. Looking at his disheveled appearance, I still couldn't help laughing out loud. I was wiping my tears with my sleeve while laughing at him. He frowned slightly. What are you laughing at? I tried to save face and said, Henry, you really should look at yourself in the mirror. You look so stupid right now. Henry curled his lips, tapped my forehead with his fingertips, and said teasingly, Oliver, you should look at yourself in the mirror. Your snot is about to run into your mouth. I quickly pulled out a tissue to wipe my nose and found that he had just been lying to me. I stared at him, but he let out a soft laugh. He subconsciously raised his hand gently, then seemed to think of something and stopped his hand in mid-air. I urged him, if you want to touch it, do it quickly. I know my hair feels good to touch. His palm was wide and warm, and it gently landed on my hair. By this time, the parents' meeting was over. The school was very quiet. The branches in the garden swayed in the gentle breeze. In the distance, the sun was about to set, dyeing the sky a blush. Henry and I were sitting side by side on the stairs. Henry was a bit taller than me. I looked up at him slightly. A gust of gentle wind blew his hair. The red in the sky was reflected in his eyes. His eyes sparkled, and there was still a smile on his lips. Hey, Henry, I won't tell others about your family's business. In exchange, you can't tell our classmates that I cried. He smiled at me but didn't reply. I reached out my hand. Come on, Pinky, swear. He burst into laughter. His voice was clear. He grinned widely, and his eyes were curved with laughter. "How old are you?" he teased me. I had to awkwardly take back my hand. "Fine, don't pinky swear then." Suddenly, Henry smiled and grabbed my hand, hooking my little finger. His hand was a bit hot, and his fingertips were long. I looked into his eyes and saw myself reflected in them. My face was red, probably flushed by the sun. The afterglow of the sunset was like a rich ink painting, slowly spreading out. A soft light enveloped the two of us. Our shadows were stretched long and projected on the stairs. They merged at the end of the stairs, as if two people were standing shoulder to shoulder. This situation was a bit awkward. I sat next to Henry, holding a chemistry test paper in my hand. I had only filled in 2 blanks on the inference questions of the paper. Yesterday, Henry and I made up in the small garden. Maybe there was something more than just reconciliation. Something like a budding friendship. So, I should be able to ask him about the questions. But I didn't know what to call him. Calling him Henry would seem distant, and calling him Monitor would seem cold. I needed to call him something that was both polite and friendly, and it must also show my goodwill. After thinking for a while, I poked him on the arm with my fingertip. Henry put down his pen and looked at me with a smile, holding the test paper. I said awkwardly, "Hey, Henry Gidge." Henry let out a snort of laughter. His laughter was clear and crisp, and his long eyelashes fluttered slightly. Gradually, he covered his face with his hands and laughed even louder. From time to time, some classmates in the class would look in our direction. My ears turned red, and I lowered my head in embarrassment. I heard a girl murmur softly, "I've never seen the Monitor laugh so happily." I was stunned for a moment after hearing that, then looked up at Henry again. He was laughing heartily, with tears almost in his eyes. Indeed, it was the first time I had seen him laugh so happily. Maybe because I found out his little secret yesterday, I felt a little ticklish inside and a bit proud. It seemed that Henry only showed his true self in front of me. More and more classmates are looking at us. I nudged him with my elbow and said, "Hey Henry, stop laughing." He covered his mouth with his hand, his eyes curved, and teased me. "What? Didn't you just call me brother, Henry?" He leaned in close to me, smiling softly. "Good little brother. Call me again." I pushed him away, my face burning hot. "No more, no more. I'll just call you Desmate from now on. Can you help me with this chemistry problem?" After this, I always called him Desmate. Henry and I got to know each other better and better. The turning point was that the class teacher asked for a week's leave, and all the trivial matters were put on the class monitor. Every noon, Henry had to stay behind to supervise the students on duty and record the class performance. I've always been a loner and just made do with my lunch. When I got back to the classroom after lunch, Henry was still sitting at his desk organizing materials. The classroom was empty. I saw him frowning, looking tired and annoyed. I suddenly realized that Henry might not want to do these things at all. He really looked exhausted. Everyone only saw his honors but didn't see his hardships. My body suddenly wouldn't listen to me. I suddenly started running, rushed to the canteen, fought with the junior students, and finally grabbed the last red bean paste bread. When I came back, he was pinching the bridge of his nose and writing something. I casually threw the bread on his desk. He looked up, his brows showing exhaustion, but still smiled at me. "Buy one get one free at the canteen." I said casually, "Thank you." He quickly unwrapped the bread and took a big bite. I felt that he would faint from hunger if he didn't eat something soon. I snatched the materials from his desk, glanced at them, and said, "Hey buddy, can I just copy this?" He slowly swallowed the bread and stopped me. "You take a rest. I'll do it myself." I shook off his hand. "Do it yourself, my ass." Henry and I spent the whole lunch break and finally finished those damn things. After finishing, I was so tired that I lay on the desk. Ugh, my hands are so sore. Henry also imitated me and lay on the desk, facing me. "Yeah, me too." He added, "Thank you, Oliver." We were lying face to face on the desk, very close to each other. I could even hear his breathing. His eyelashes were very long and distinct, and his eyes were very bright, staring at me. I felt very uncomfortable and awkwardly turned my head to the other side, showing him the back of my head. Then Henry and I lay on the desk and fell asleep. I remember at that time the poplar trees outside the window were rustling in the wind. The lazy afternoon sun shone through the window, casting mottled shadows on the windowsill. During the week when the class teacher was on leave, I bought lunch every day and stayed to help Henry organize materials. Sometimes I bought instant noodles, sometimes bread. I had to buy many servings. Although Henry was not picky, he could really eat. He was a glutton. When we were in good spirits, the two of us would chat. When we were in a bad mood, we would lie on the desks and sleep together. I secretly brought an MP3. Henry and I each wore an earphone and spent the whole noon like this. Later, The class teacher came back. Organizing materials was annoying, but I actually hoped she wouldn't come back so soon. After school at noon that day, I got up awkwardly and subconsciously glanced at him. Henry smiled at me and asked me if I wanted to have a meal with him. I nodded randomly. Then I started waiting for Henry to have meals together every day. A few days later, after school in the afternoon, Henry asked me if I wanted to take the bus with him. I nodded randomly. Then I started taking the bus with Henry every day. The class no longer has people crowding me out. Even having a classmate start and I say hello. I know it's all thanks to Henry. The days passed slowly. When I was bored in class, I liked to secretly eat corn crunchies. I wasn't satisfied with eating alone and insisted on dragging the good class monitor Henry to join me. At first, he was reluctant and would stop me when I secretly ate. Our seats were quite off-center, so I used books to block our faces and stuffed corn crunchies into his mouth. Later, he gave in under my coercion. We often made crunching sounds and our mouths were bulging. Henry can eat a lot. His stomach is like a bottomless pit. He ate up a whole box of corn crunchies by himself. We like to eat the most in physics class. The physics teacher in our class is an old man. He looks like the little pig in Winnie the Pooh. He likes to gesticulate when he talks. He is very cute. I secretly drew his cartoon version in the physics book in various poses. Whenever the physics teacher made the same movements as in the picture, I quickly nudged Henry with my elbow and pointed it out to him. Henry often looked at me helplessly and still fulfilled his duty as the class monitor by hitting my hand with a pen to discipline me. But when he turned around, I saw him covering his mouth and snickering. I bought 4 boxes of snacks, filled them to the brim, and piled them beside my feet, specifically to feed my deskmate. By the time he finished all 4 boxes of snacks, several months had passed. Winter came quietly. In winter, students don't like to go to the laboratory because it's too cold. But Henry likes to stay there. He spends the whole noon there. Every time there's a chemistry experiment class, his eyes shine. He likes to tinker with those bottles and jars. I'm quite afraid of the cold. Wrapped in my coat, shivering and rubbing my hands, I accompany him in the laboratory. Henry tells me to go back to the classroom, and I shake my head desperately. He says, "It's very cold here." I say, "I just like the smell of ammonia." He sighs softly. Henry likes to make crystals. He's made many of them, and a row of shiny things are placed there. That day, feeling all kinds of little gadgets, I proposed to him, "Deskmate, since you like chemistry so much, why not apply for a chemistry major in the college entrance examination?" When I turn around, I see his hand holding the flask stop. He lowers his eyes, and his tall figure actually looks a bit lonely. I press my lips tightly. I know about his family situation. Henry can't do what he wants to do. He can't even show his true self. Maybe he also wants to be lazy. Maybe he also wants to have fun. But he has to be the class monitor day after day and get the first place year after year. He's only in his teens, but he has to bear his mother's high expectations and shoulder the responsibility for his mother's happiness. I try to change the topic. "Deskmate, the blue one is quite nice. I want one." I point at that particularly large piece of copper sulfate. Henry raises his eyes, hooks the corner of his lips, and says, "Do you want to put such a big piece in your pocket and take it home?" I'm left speechless. He smiles softly, walks over and rubs my hair, and says, "I'll give you one in a couple of days. One you can carry around." I just give a casual At this time, it was cloudy outside the window. The cold wind slapped against the window, and the trees were bare of leaves. I sat on the stool, rubbed my sleepy eyes, and lazily lay on the laboratory table. Henry came over and sat down beside me. There was the smell of chemical reagents on him. I used to hate the smell in chemistry class, but now I suddenly find it quite pleasant. He faced me and lay on the table. In the classroom, we often lay face to face. We could talk to each other or sleep facing each other. Sometimes he would tease me, saying that I drooled when I slept. I was tricked by him several times. After waking up, I would wipe my mouth in a hurry. When I looked up, I would see him squinting and smiling. At this moment, the laboratory was different from the classroom. The 2 stools were so close that there was almost no gap between them. After he lay down, our arms and thighs were all touching. It was warm. Suddenly, the laboratory was no longer cold. His face was very close. I could see myself in his eyes and feel his breath. His body temperature was very high, and it slowly passed through his thick clothes to me. Occasionally, a cold wind would blow in through the crack of the door at a tricky angle, and the cold wind would all blow on Henry. Not a bit of it blew on me. On a Saturday night in winter, as usual, I booked a hotel room with a girl. After she took a shower, she sat beside me, with her chest against my arm. It was soft. I was crazy. pushed her away. She looked at me in surprise. I wiped my face with my hand, helped her put on her clothes, and sincerely apologized to her. I said sorry. I'm in a really bad mood. Let me take you home. On the way to take her back, I told her, let's not do this anymore. By the way, tell your friends that Oliver won't do it anymore. After saying this, she was very surprised and then nodded. After saying this, I was very surprised and then stared at my own toes. I cursed myself in my heart. Oliver, you're crazy. The crazy me went home and found that I was even crazier. I didn't bring my house keys. I hesitated for a while and still dialed my mom's phone. It took more than 20 calls before the other side answered. Mom, I didn't bring my house keys. There were sounds of men and women laughing on the other end of the phone, like they were having a party. Beep, beep dash. The phone was hung up. There was a message from my mom on WeChat on my phone. She transferred me 1,000 yuan and only sent 3 words, stay in a hotel. I squeezed my phone irritably, lifted my foot and kicked the security door hard. The sound echoed in the corridor. As a result, I accidentally dropped my phone from my hand and it fell through the gap in the stairs with a bang when it hit the ground. When I went downstairs to find it, it was already broken. I looked up at the closed door and then at the shattered phone. Then I took a deep breath, put my hands in my down jacket pockets and walked out reluctantly. Dusk had fallen outside and the moonlight was dim. Slowly, snowflakes began to fall and spin under the streetlights. There were few pedestrians on the street and the trees were bare with snow on their branches. All of a sudden, it seemed that I was the only one left in the world. I walked aimlessly, breathing out hot air to try to keep myself warm. My legs were numb from the cold. When I came to my senses, I found that I had walked to the bus stop. There is only this one bus stop near my home. Henry and I get off at the stop every day after school. His home is nearby. All of a sudden, I really wanted to see Henry. Actually, we just saw each other yesterday. Yesterday was Friday and we did a chemistry experiment. We worked in pairs with our desk mates. He even scolded me for being too careless when pouring concentrated sulfuric acid and held my hand to check it for a long time. Yesterday during the lunch break, he took out a coat from his desk drawer with a smile and put it on me. He said he had a lot of clothes, so he brought an extra one. Yesterday when school was almost over, he helped me get a cup of boiling hot water and told me to hold the water bottle to warm my hands on the way. I really want to see Henry. I looked up at the sky, and the snowflakes fell on my face. I touched them with my fingertips, and then they melted. I exhaled a breath, and it formed a white mist. As soon as I touched it, the white mist disappeared again. I feel stuffy in my heart. Suddenly I clenched my fists and shouted at the sky, Henrique. After shouting, my heart was pounding. My emotions welled up. I put my hands around my mouth to make a megaphone shape and continued to shout, Henry, Henry. Where are you? Henry. Hey, everyone in the building. Open your windows and let me see. Let me see who of you is Henry. The more I shouted it, the more exhilarated I felt, and I was completely excited. I was jumping up and down on the spot while shouting, Henry, come out for me. Henry, my mouth was covered by someone. The person behind me had broad shoulders and was very tall. He wrapped his arms around me. I was completely pressed against his chest. There was a faint smell of chemical reagents on his hands. A clear voice with a hint of laughter came from beside my ear. Don't shout. I heard you. I leaned back against his chest and tilted my head up slightly, just meeting his smiling eyes. He looked down at me. The distance was very close. His bangs hung down and tickled my forehead. My face was very hot, so I quickly broke free from his embrace. He ruffled my hair. His palm was a bit cold. What did you call me for? My whole body was burning. I turned my head away. I just wanted to call you. Then I noticed that he was holding a bag in his left hand, a supermarket shopping bag. He must have just finished shopping. Henry. Yes, Henry. I called him again. Yes. There was a smile on his face. My face was on fire. I was very awkward, scraping my fingernail against my finger pad and looking elsewhere. Henry, do you want to come to my place? He smiled and tapped my forehead with his fingertip. I nodded randomly, touched my nose and said, well, since you've invited me, I'll accept then. He and I walked side by side on the road, each holding one side of the shopping bag. The snowflakes under the streetlights were glistening, twinkling with a soft light. The hazy moon hung in the dark sky. The desolate winter night became pure and wonderful. When we arrived at his place, I stood awkwardly at the door, rubbing the sole of my shoe against the floor and hesitating to go in, stealing glances at Henry. He seemed to see through my embarrassment and explained to me, I live in this house alone. Come in. I let out a sigh of relief and stepped inside. I stood at the door looking around his place. It was small and simple, without even a TV. I couldn't help asking, "Where's your mom?" He helped me find a pair of slippers and said, "She lives with my father." I nodded, shuffled inside in my slippers, turned to look at him and asked, "Can I have a tour?" He gave a grunt, took a step forward and tried to unzip my down jacket. I felt awkward about this intimate gesture and quickly took a step back, saying, "I'll do it myself." I took off my coat in a hurry and then looked around his house. There was food everywhere in his kitchen and the fridge was also stuffed full. I widened my eyes and unconsciously quipped, "You can really eat." I looked back at him and found he didn't hear me. He was carefully hanging up my coat and spreading it out flat. I then ran to his bedroom and was startled when I opened the door. The room was piled high with books everywhere. There were also unfinished test papers spread out on the table. There was a class list on the wall with everyone's phone numbers and birthdays written down. The calendar was densely filled with notes. I even had trouble breathing in such a room. I don't know how Henry managed to stand it. All of a sudden, I understood why there was no TV in his house. It wasn't that he didn't want to watch, but that he couldn't. I dragged my heavy feet back to Henry. He was tidying up the kitchen and looked very proficient. I gently poked the back of his neck with my finger. He shrank his neck, rubbed the place where I poked with his finger, turned back and smiled at me, asking, "What's up?" I quietly looked at him. He tapped my forehead with his fingertip and asked, "Why are you looking at me?" I stood on tiptoe, held the back of his head with my hand and pressed his head onto my shoulder. "Mate, you can lean on me." I stroked his hair with my hand and then said, "Henry, your elder brother Oliver will look out for you from now on." I almost moved myself, but Henry slyly teased me. He leaned on my shoulder and chuckled, twirling the end of my hair with his index finger. "Why don't you call me Brother Henry anymore?" I pushed him away angrily. "Can't you just let this joke go?" He ignored me and continued to tidy up the kitchen, with a smile always on his lips. After taking a shower at night, Henry took out 3 thick quilts. I was sitting cross-legged on the bed, wearing his clothes from the inside out, seeing him bustling around. I asked puzzledly, "Can't we just share one quilt?" He looked up, squinting his eyes. "No, someone is afraid of the cold." I touched my nose. Just like that, Henry and I lay in the same quilt, with 3 layers of cotton quilts on us. Before falling asleep, I held the quilt in my hand and watched his chest rise and fall like the tides. "Mate, are you asleep?" I asked him. "No." He tucked in the corner of the quilt for me. "Henry." He gave a soft grunt. I didn't know what to say either. I just really wanted to call his name. Then, I subconsciously reported to him, "I won't hang out with those girls anymore." He didn't say a word, but I knew he understood. You shouldn't look down on me anymore, right?" I asked. Suddenly, there was a puff of warm air behind me, and a warm chest pressed against me. Henry wrapped his arms around me from behind and hugged me in his arms. He leaned close to my ear and said, "Oliver, you really hold a grudge. It's been so long, and you still remember it." He stroked my forehead with his palm and pushed aside the hair in front of my forehead. "Go to sleep." I felt his body temperature and fell asleep warmly. When I woke up the next day, I was face to face with Henry. The tips of our noses were touching each other, and our limbs were intertwined. Coincidentally, we opened our eyes at the same time. Unfortunately, we both had an erection at the same time. I felt something hot on my thigh, and I knew there was also something hot between my legs. We bounced apart like springs and each grabbed the quilt to cover our crotches. Then we awkwardly got dressed, awkwardly washed up, awkwardly had breakfast, and awkwardly chatted about this and that. We pretended to forget about this. Facts have proved that people always forget those embarrassing things. When school started on Monday, Oliver and Henry seemed to have forgotten the embarrassment of that morning. Everything seemed to be back to normal again. Everything seemed to start being abnormal again. For example, I could no longer remain calm when he got close to me. For example, he could no longer naturally touch my head. But these abnormalities soon got back on track, and life went on as usual. Time passed by, and a college entrance examination countdown poster was put up at the back of the classroom. That day, the class teacher walked in with books in her arms, gave each of us a sticky note, and asked us to write down our first-choice universities and prepare to stick them at the back of the classroom to encourage our classmates. I bit the pen in my mouth and stared blankly at the sticky note for a while. Then, I covered my face with my palm and peeked at the side through my fingers. Henry filled out his form quickly. I knocked his pencil case off with my elbow. "Hey, mate, your stuff fell." I naturally talked to him as usual. Henry looked down, bent down to pick up the pencil case. I immediately leaned over to his desk and saw clearly what was written on it. I knew what I should write down. After class, suddenly, Henry grabbed my hand and covered my eyes with his warm palm, still feeling guilty about what had just happened. I stammered. What are you doing?" "Sure, close your eyes." "Hey, you've covered them. I can't see." It was pitch black in front of my eyes. I heard him laughing. What are you doing? Don't open your eyes. I heard a rustling sound, as if he was taking something out of his pocket. He whispered, open your eyes. When I opened my eyes, I saw something crystal clear. A thin black leather cord strung a small glass bottle. The glass bottle was transparent and shiny. Inside it were small blue glittering crystals, cut into tiny pieces, reflecting the sunlight outside the window. They were copper sulfate crystals. It was a necklace, seemingly handmade. I wondered how he had the time. After all, as a senior in high school, he was really busy. I took the necklace. When I looked up, I saw Henry with his back to the sunlight, his hair ends glowing golden brown. He stared at me intently, with the corners of his lips slightly curled up. I turned my head away and stammered. You still remembered. Do you like it? He reached out and gently pinched my earlobe with his index finger and thumb. My earlobe was getting hot. I nodded clumsily and said, It's quite nice. Unconsciously, I got anxious and fumbled to put the necklace on my neck. After putting it on, I found that he was propping his chin with his hand and staring intently at me, his eyes as bright as stars. What are you looking at? I continued to stutter, and I became all awkward. Henry shook his head with a soft laugh, turned around, and continued to work on his test paper. The poplar trees outside the window were slowly sprouting new leaves, and the faint fragrance of flower buds wafted from afar. We were about to welcome summer. Later, summer came. Later, we took the college entrance examination. Later, we graduated. Later, we received the admission notices from the same university. That summer vacation was sweltering, and teenagers in their teens were all troubled by the upcoming separation. And I was sitting on the sofa in Henry's house, munching on an ice cream and watching an animated movie. His family had bought a new TV, a new bed sheet, and there were many new things in his house. There was also me. That day, I went to school with him to pick up our files. I casually mentioned to him that my mom had a new boyfriend and he would live in my house from then on. I said this very casually without showing a hint of dissatisfaction. He could always see my embarrassment. At that time, he ruffled my hair and asked me if I wanted to stay at his place. I nodded haphazardly. Then I started staying at his place. I was lazily lying on the sofa in Henry's house. Looking up, I could see him bustling around in the kitchen. His sleeves were rolled up a bit, and a bit of blue veins showed on his fair arms. There were beads of sweat on his forehead. Suddenly, I had a crazy thought. No matter where Henry went, even to the ends of the earth, even to the most remote places, I would follow him. I like Henry. Teenagers are unrestrained, with mountains in their hearts and rivers in their eyes. We are always looking forward, and we never know whether the next turn will be a pleasant spring scene or a bloody storm. Henry and I went to the university to register together. He studied law, and I studied advertising. His dormitory was only one floor away from mine. Even after entering university, we still hung out together. Every weekend, I would curl up on his living room sofa and watch TV, while he would sit at the dining table and read books. When we were free, we would carry a bunch of books to the library to study. I joined the Youth Volunteers Association, and he joined the School Student Union. Henry was still as excellent as ever. In his freshman year, he won a full subject scholarship. He was gentle to others and very popular. More and more girls came to me to inquire about him. Later, in his sophomore year, when the organizations had leadership changes, he became the department head. Those innocent junior girls chased after him even more. People can never sit still in times of crisis. Take me for example. In the first week after the start of the sophomore year, Henry came to my dormitory to find me right after a meeting. There was no one in the dormitory at that time. Suddenly, I grabbed the corner of his clothes and said awkwardly, "Hey Henry, I have something to tell you." He was stunned for a moment and then nodded with a smile. "Go ahead." My mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Finally I said, "I really don't want to eat pickled fish with sauerkraut tonight." He rubbed my head and said, "Then let's have something else." "Oliver, you are so useless." For a whole month, I kept stammering. I kept asking him out and kept failing to confess my love. By October, I finally stopped being so hesitant. I practiced in front of the mirror many times and finally could fluently say those cheesy words. During the National Day holiday, I thought hard and still went to buy candles and flowers. Although those things looked very romantic, they were really difficult to arrange. I remember that the temperature was very high that day. Stuffy and hot. The air conditioner remote control at his home was broken. I was sweating profusely and wiped the sweat with my hand. It took me a whole morning to finish the arrangement. In the afternoon, I ran to the cake shop and clumsily made a red velvet cake under the patient guidance of the cake master. I cooked by myself at night. The taste was ordinary, but the appearance was passable. I lit all the candles, sat in his house, looked around, and felt quite satisfied. Nervously, I took out my phone, hesitated for a long time, and my palms were soaked with sweat. Finally, I gritted my teeth and dialed Henry's number. Henry, my voice trembled slightly. Yeah, he replied to me. There was a long silence on the phone. I picked at the corner of the table and beat around the bush. Henry, the air conditioner remote control is broken. Okay, I'll go back and check it later. His voice became gentle. I pinched my thigh hard and just blurted out, Hey, when will you come back? It'll be a bit late. I'm still having dinner. I was stunned for a while. I didn't expect he had a date. I looked at the food on the table helplessly. It was very quiet on the other end of the phone. It didn't seem like a department dinner. Casually, I asked, Henry, who are you having dinner with? He didn't answer me. There was a long silence on the phone. Then I heard him say, My mom arranged a blind date for me. I picked at the corner of the table with one hand and squeezed my phone tightly with the other. I said in a nonchalant tone, Poor you. You're going on a blind date at such a young age. He let out a soft laugh, which seemed a bit bitter. Once again, there was a long period of silence on the phone. I don't know how much time had passed when I heard him say softly, I'm with her. He said a long passage after that, talking for a very long time, but I didn't catch a single word. The blood in my ear canals was surging. It was as if my cochlea had exploded, and my temples were throbbing non-stop. I felt dizzy and everything in front of my eyes was spinning. I don't even remember what I said. When my eyes finally focused again, I found that the phone in my hand had slipped to the ground at some point. The screen showed the call log between me and Henry. The fingertips of my left hand were hurting, even more than my heart. I looked down and saw that my fingertips were digging into the corner of the table. My nails were slightly cracked and there was blood oozing out. Ignoring the pain, I rubbed my face hard with my palm. Then I slowly got up and started to clean up the mess. I blew out the candles one by one and plucked the flowers one by one. Soon, the room was back to its original state. No one knew about my full-hearted joy, and no one knew about my innocent love. I stuffed the food on the table into my stomach desperately. I actually finished a whole table of dishes by myself. I went to take out the trash in a daze. In the end, I just couldn't bear to throw away that box of red velvet cake. I squatted in front of the trash can and stuffed the whole cake into my mouth until it was full. When I wiped my mouth with my hand, I found that my face was wet. It turned out that I was crying. Actually, I'm quite stubborn and not prone to crying. I didn't cry when my father left heartlessly, and I didn't cry when my mother brought her boyfriend home. Only he could make me cry. I returned to his place and lay on the bed. I closed my eyes, but I just couldn't fall asleep. I don't know how long I had been lying there when I heard the sound of a key turning at the door. Henry was back. He slowly pushed open the door of my bedroom. I closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep. Then he quietly walked away. After he left, I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling, constantly fumbling for the bottle of copper sulfate crystals around my neck with my hand. That night, I started to have a stomachache. I was in so much pain that cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I covered my stomach with my hand and curled up in bed, unable to get up. My throat was extremely dry, but I still called Henry's name over and over again. Henry rushed into my bedroom, supported my legs and picked me up horizontally. I leaned against his chest and gently put my arms around his neck. Henry was very anxious. He held me tightly, rushed out in a hurry in his pajamas, and a patch of his back was wet with sweat. When I opened my eyes again, I was getting an intravenous drip in the hospital. My hand was tightly held by Henry. He stared at me intently, with bloodshot eyes. His hair was in a mess, and there was actually a stubble on his chin. Suddenly I laughed, laughing at how silly he looked. Then he got angry. There was fury in his eyes, and there was no smile on his lips as usual. Are you still laughing? He said in a deep voice. I had to shut up. He tucked in the corner of the quilt for me and asked, What did you eat yesterday? I was slightly stunned. So it was already the next day. Didn't Henry stay with me all night? I shook my head at him and replied, I don't remember what I ate. Henry sighed softly and murmured to himself, It's good that you're awake. Then he held my hand tightly and laid his head on the hospital bed. In just 1 second, he fell asleep motionless. I was sure at this moment that he had stayed with me all night. I tried to break free from his hand, but he held it so tightly that I failed to break free after several attempts. Finally, I lay in the hospital bed with my eyes wide open and sighed faintly, just like Henry did. Henry is in a relationship. This matter has spread far and wide. The girl is the campus belle of the School of Liberal Arts. It is rumored that her father is the chairman of a state-owned enterprise. They are a perfect match, a handsome man and a beautiful woman. My life remains unaffected. I still hang out with Henry. I still stay at his place and have meals with him as usual. Only occasionally when I see them walking side by side at school, my heart aches as if being pricked by a carving knife. That girl is called Charlotte. She often saw Henry and me together and later got familiar with me. She is really nice, gentle and considerate, and knows a lot of knowledge. I got familiar with her quickly. If I hadn't fallen in love with Henry, I would definitely have liked her too. Days passed by quietly. In a blink of an eye, a semester ended. During the winter vacation, Henry deleted a WeChat Moments post. It was a photo of Charlotte, which he posted to announce their relationship at that time. I felt strange and sent a WeChat message to Henry. I only sent an emoji. Henry really understands me. He directly replied that he had broken up with Charlotte. I held my phone and stood there in a daze. That night, I went to his place with a few bottles of beer. I thought I would see a distraught and wailing Henry. Unexpectedly, when I opened the door with the key, Henry was sitting at the table typing his thesis and sipping coffee leisurely. It was black coffee, no sugar and no milk. He actually likes this strange, flavored stuff. He walked towards me and helped me take off my coat. "Why did you come here?" He smiled and ruffled my hair. I stammered no. I just wanted to come. I just came to check on him, afraid that he might do something stupid after the breakup. Henry saw the beer in my hand, and then he burst out laughing. I got angry. "What are you laughing at?" He tapped my forehead with his fingertip. "What? Do you still want a drink?" There was a glint of mischief in his eyes as he continued. "Have you forgotten last year's New Year's Eve?" My face flushed red instantly. I spent last year's New Year's Eve with my department colleagues. That day, our youth volunteer association and Henry's student union booked the same restaurant. Although I liked to hang out with girls in high school, I only did so in hotels and never touched alcohol. On New Year's Eve, everyone was enthusiastically pouring drinks. I couldn't refuse, so I kept drinking glass after glass until I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, Henry was lying on my bedside, squinting at me. I was startled by him. "What are you doing?" He twirled my hair with his index finger. "Oliver, do you still remember what happened last night?" His words made me feel uneasy. I clutched the corner of the quilt and shook my head blankly. Then Henry took out his phone and showed me a video. In the video, I was sitting on the ground. People around me were trying to pull me up, but I refused. I shook them off and curled up on the ground with my legs hugged, sitting on the ground with a red face. I shouted, "Henry, come out for me." My colleagues quickly pulled Henry over. When I saw Henry, I started to giggle and grabbed the corner of his pants. Then I continued to curl up my body and hug myself tightly. I shouted to Henry, "Henry, look, I'm Oliver, and I'm a ball." People around me burst into laughter. I ignored them and drunkenly grabbed his pants and shouted again, "Henry, I'm a ball." Henry stroked my hair, with a teasing look in his eyes, and coaxed me with a smile. "Yes, our Oliver is really amazing. Our Oliver is a ball." He patiently coaxed me. After more than 20 minutes, I finally stopped obsessing over whether I was a ball or not. Henry struggled to carry me on his back. As a result, I excitedly jumped off his back and ran to the center of the restaurant, snatching the host's microphone. With a blushing face, I waved to Henry in the distance and shouted in front of everyone, "Brother Henry." I threw the microphone away again, put my hands on my hips, and seriously shouted, "Henry, I, Oliver, will protect you." I watched the video with a livid face. Henry watched me with a smile on his face the whole time. His eyes curved. From that day on, I couldn't face my classmates in the restaurant calmly. Moreover, I didn't receive any confessions from girls anymore. At this moment, I was holding a wine bottle and standing in Henry's house. The embarrassment from the New Year's Eve swept over me again. I coughed lightly and pushed the wine into his arms. "Hey, are you going to drink or not?" Henry nodded with a smile. We didn't drink much wine. Henry drank while I watched. We chatted off and on. He was smiling and didn't seem very sad. I rubbed my empty wine glass with my fingertips. Henry suddenly pinched the tip of my left finger. The smile faded from his face and he frowned slightly. "Is it still not better?" I quickly withdrew my hand and nodded randomly. He squinted his eyes. I felt a bit evasive and awkwardly hid my fingertips behind my back. He gave a soft laugh, propped his chin with his hand, and squinted his eyes. "How did you hurt your finger?" "You told me last time, but I forgot." When Henry squinted his eyes, he looked a bit sly. I turned my head away and secretly rubbed the wound on my fingertip. This was accidentally cut on the night when I was going to confess my love to him. "Oh, this was just an accidental injury when I was cooking." He took a sip of his wine, looked up at me and asked, "Wasn't it cut when you were trimming your nails?" My heart skipped a beat. I turned my head away and corrected myself. "Yes, it was cut when I was trimming my nails." I remembered it wrong. Then I repeated affirmatively, "I just wasn't careful when trimming my nails." His eyes darkened and the smile on his face completely faded away. "Oliver, actually you said it was cut when you were cooking." I suddenly looked up and saw his cold eyes. I had no choice but to lower my head and keep silent. After a long time, Henry ruffled my hair and regained his smile. Well done, Oliver. You can lie to me now. I turned my head away guiltily and changed the topic. Why did you break up with Charlotte? He gave a soft laugh. That's a rather abrupt topic change. Then he replied to me. It was just an ordinary amicable breakup. After he finished speaking, I felt a pang in my heart. I pinched my thigh and casually asked, Hey, Henry, do you like her very much? After I said that, I quickly stole a glance at him. Henry put down his wine glass and smiled helplessly. So what if I like her? So what if I don't? He paused for a while. Breaking up is really a bit of a hassle. Our parents have already met and talked about marriage. Now that we've broken up, all the arrangements will be disrupted. I was rendered speechless by his words. I only need to think about who I like, while Henry has to consider so many things. Actually, I came here with some beer today because I wanted to get drunk and tell him, Henry, Oliver, like you, but now I'm glad I didn't do that. My overjoyed love is nothing but a burden to Henry. A few days later, I ran into Charlotte. This unexpected encounter left both of us stunned for a moment. She took the initiative to say hello to me. Then we just chatted casually for a few words. Before parting, I still wanted to say a few words for Henry. I sincerely said to her, Charlotte, Henry is really quite nice. He takes good care of people. Well, could you consider it again? Charlotte smiled and said, Oliver, Henry is excellent in all aspects. He is a perfect man, but Jade has flaws, doesn't it? Jade without flaws would be fake. I explained anxiously. He is not fake. I mean, he has some minor flaws. Henry especially likes to play tricks on people and likes to tease others with a smile. He is sly. Charlotte smiled and said, Oliver, that's only towards you. I was speechless. Indeed, Henry only shows the side of himself to me. Charlotte patted me on the shoulder and said, Oliver, I hope the person who will stay with me for a lifetime is someone who truly loves me. I don't want my partner and me to become puppets in an arranged marriage. Love must be free. There was a sneer in her eyes. The older generation is still very feudal. They use the word filial piety to bind their children, sacrificing their sons' marriages to fulfill their own happiness. She looked up, her eyes bright. Oliver, if you really want Henry to be happy, you shouldn't follow his mother's wishes with him. This is already oppression. We need to resist. Charlotte's words kept lingering in my ears. Henry is unhappy. He has to bear his mother's endless hopes, for his mother's satisfaction and his father's approval. He has always been doing things he doesn't like. He sacrificed his love for chemistry and even his own marriage. But why should all of his mother's happiness be paid for by his sacrifices? I walked on the road, silently thinking. As I was thinking too intently, I accidentally bumped into someone. Sorry, I apologized casually. When I looked up, I was stunned for a moment. It's you. The boy in front of me had red, dyed hair and was holding a skateboard in his hand. He was a junior in our department named William. I had led him in several activities and we were quite familiar with each other. Senior, where are you going? William asked. Going to have a meal. I'm also going to have a meal. He looked down at me. I'm not as sensitive to human relationships as Henry, so it led to a situation where William and I stood on the street, looking at each other in dismay. After a while, I tentatively asked him. Together? He nodded. We randomly found a restaurant. I absent-mindedly sat down, and my fingers kept rubbing the copper sulfate crystal around my neck. William tried to strike up a conversation with me several times. Because of what happened when I saw Charlotte just now, I was a bit absent-minded. While sipping the tea, I nodded to respond to him. Then I spat out the tea in one gulp and coughed forcefully twice. What did you say? I raised my voice in shock. Senior, I said I like you. I stared with wide eyes and couldn't say a word. It's common for girls to confess their love, but it was the first time for a boy. I used to not know how to politely reject someone's confession, but later Henry taught me. I replied, William, you're a good boy, but I don't want to be in a relationship right now. Senior, how do you know if you don't try? I had to tell him bluntly. I have someone I like, but you're not together. I was rendered speechless by him. William spoke again. Can't you give it a try with me? Try having a relationship. No, I interrupted him. Then how about having sex? I can be the submissive one. I blushed with anger, glaring at him and stuttering in fright. Are you crazy? He stopped talking. We finished the meal in silence. Before we parted ways, I nudged his arm and said, Hey, William, stop being crazy and find someone else to like. He shook his head. I ignored him and turned around to walk home. When I got home, Henry was sitting on the sofa, and the dining table was filled with delicious dishes. While taking off my coat, I stared blankly at him and asked, why didn't you tell me you were cooking? Henry took my coat and carefully hung it up for me, whispering, It's a surprise for you, but I've already eaten. He was stunned for a moment, then ruffled my hair and said, It's okay, I can finish it by myself. I sat at the dining table, resting my chin on my hand, watching Henry eat. His mouth kept chewing. In no time, he had finished all the food on the table. Even though he ate so much, he didn't gain weight. As I stared at Henry eating, I remembered what Charlotte had said to me and lost myself in thought. Oliver, hearing him call me, I blinked my eyes and slowly came back to my senses. What are you thinking about? He let out a soft laugh. I turned my head away, touched my nose, and didn't answer him. Actually, I was thinking about you. Henry suddenly squinted at me. Did you meet anyone when you went out today? I trembled. He was always so smart. My eyes wandered everywhere. I didn't meet anyone. I just met your ex-girlfriend and talked about you. Henry put down his chopsticks and stared at my face. Did you have dinner alone? I shook my head. I had dinner with a classmate from my department, William, the one who used to do volunteer work with me. Thinking of William's confession, I felt even more awkward. My ear tips turned red involuntarily and I touched my nose. Henry said in a flat tone, the one with red hair? I casually replied with an just the two of you? He stared at my face. I nodded slightly. There was a silence in the restaurant. A few minutes later, Henry stood up. The corner of his mouth curled up, but his eyes were calm without a trace of a smile. Oliver, I'll cook at home this month. Remember to come home for dinner. I nodded blankly. He tapped my forehead with his fingertips. His fingertips were cold, which made me shiver. Oliver, the food outside isn't clean, he said with a smile. As soon as the winter vacation starts, I like to go out and wander around. That day, I planned to go to the art gallery for a stroll. The subway was very crowded. A female high school student was standing next to me. Suddenly, she let out a wow and rushed towards me. I stepped 2 steps outward to let her squeeze into the corner. What's wrong? I asked. Her face turned pale. There's a lecture. I looked back. Everyone was holding a phone, and it was hard to tell who had evil intentions. Stand further inside, I told her. She clenched her fists and nodded. I placed my hands on either side of her, using my body to protect her. Her face turned a bit red. She stole a glance at me and whispered a thank you. I wanted to tell her it was okay, but suddenly I let out a muffled groan. A pair of hands was groping my butt restlessly and was about to slip into my pants. They don't even spare men. I turned around and grabbed that hand. Angrily, I shouted, catch the lecher. There was a commotion in the carriage. The lecher I caught tried to escape but was stopped by kind-hearted people in the carriage. A strong-built big brother grabbed the lecher by the collar and cursed, you son of a bitch. We caught him together and reported to the police at the station. The incident caused quite a stir and attracted many onlookers. Someone patted me on the shoulder. When I looked back, it was actually Henry. He stood beside me, frowning. Oliver, what's going on? I originally wanted to say that a lecher had attacked a girl, but the girl beside me was tugging at my clothes, and her face was red all the way to her neck. Afraid that she would mind too much, I had to shake my head at Henry. It's nothing. Just then, the strong-built big brother passed by and angrily said to me, how can you say it's nothing? The northeast big brother pulled Henry and vividly told him, that shameless lecher. He groped this young man's butt and even stuck his hand into his pants. Then that son of a bitch. Henry stared at me, and his eyes grew darker and darker. I stared at the tips of my shoes, and my expression grew increasingly unpleasant. That day, Henry took me home and didn't say a word to me the whole way. As we were approaching the door of our home, I awkwardly stopped him. Hey, Henry. He glanced at my face indifferently and curled his lips, as if in mockery. Oliver, you're really a hero for justice. I'm a very stubborn person. If he doesn't talk nicely, I won't talk to him either. The next afternoon, when I was about to go out, Henry was just coming back from outside. He casually asked me, where are you going? Just going out for a walk. He directly grabbed my arm and dragged me downstairs, then pointed at the car parked downstairs. Then he smiled at me. Get in the car. I'll take you there. I widened my eyes. Henry, where did you get this car? Bought it this morning. It's a second-hand car. Not expensive. I just used my scholarship. He was very nonchalant. I sat in his car in a daze. After sitting down, I looked around. When I lowered my head, I found the footwell of the passenger seat was stuffed with Coke. Holding the steering wheel, he lifted the corner of his mouth. Drink if you want. I stupidly picked up a bottle of Coke. Henry, don't you dislike carbonated drinks? He gave a soft laugh. Someone likes them. I rubbed my nose. The winter vacation was coming to an end. Everyone was worried about the start of school, while I was worried about Henry, because Henry had a new girlfriend again. This girl was introduced to him by his mother again, and her father is also a high-ranking official. After meeting her, they found that they not only attended the same school but also were both members of the student union. The girl's name is Sophia. She has a bit of a temper. I've met her a few times. When I tried to strike up a conversation with her, she didn't even lift her eyelids. I don't really like this girl, but she is Henry's girlfriend now. Such things make me feel really awkward. Before the start of the semester, the department and the student union jointly organized a large gathering. Both Henry and I went. It's all because of this damned gathering that everything has gone wrong. The restaurant where the gathering was held is quite big. Someone needed to stand at the door to show people the way. Since none of the new members had arrived, I, an old-timer, volunteered for the job. Sophia arrived earlier than Henry. She was wearing high heels and had her hair coiled up. She looked a bit haughty. Out of consideration for Henry's feelings, I took the initiative to say hello to her. She glanced at me and said, "Are you the Oliver that Brother Henry mentioned?" When she called Henry Brother Henry at the beginning, my good mood vanished in an instant, and I felt a bitter taste in my heart. A few seconds later, my throat became dry. I had to lower my head and just let out a grunt in response. Sophia lifted her chin and pointed outside with her finger. "Well then, go over there and carry the stuff from my car. Find someone else. I'm here to greet people." She frowned slightly. "I'm just asking you to carry it for a moment. Why are you shirking?" Hearing her bossy tone, I knew I couldn't persuade this pampered young lady, so I had to frown and help her. The boxes in her car weren't big, but they were very heavy. I carried them back and forth several times, and my arms gradually started to ache. After I finished carrying them, I was out of breath and squatted in the hall. Now, I really miss Henry's ex-girlfriend, Charlotte, very much. Just when I was missing Charlotte, Sophia came over in her high heels again and threw her bag and coat into my arms. "What's your name? Watch my stuff. I'm going to the restroom." My bad temper was almost ignited by her willfulness. When I was standing at the door with Sophia's bag in my hand, Henry came in. First, he smiled at me, then the smile faded from his eyes, and he stared at what was in my hand. I explained, "Your girlfriend went to the toilet and asked me to hold these for her." Henry frowned slightly. "Just because she asked you to hold them, you did? Can't you say no?" He's jealous of me. It wasn't my idea to hold these things. I was so angry that I was fuming. Henry reached out his hand to me. "Let me do it." Frowning, I dumped everything in my hand onto him and gritted my teeth. "Hey, do something about your girlfriend." Surprisingly, Henry let out a chuckle. Then, he casually threw Sophia's bag and coat on the ground and walked towards me. The tip of his shoe even stepped on the light-colored lady's coat on the ground, leaving a stain. "Since you said I should do something, then I will." He tapped my forehead with his fingertip. I looked down at the coat on the ground and blankly followed him back to the private room. The seating arrangement during the meal was extremely awkward. At the large round table, I was sitting next to Sophia, and Sophia was sitting next to Henry. Sophia kept chattering to Henry about something. Henry didn't respond to her and just quietly ate his meal. In the middle of the meal, Henry was called out. After he left, Sophia glanced at me and started talking to me. "Hey, you're Oliver, right?" I didn't like her, so I didn't want to talk to her. "Brother Henry just told me to be polite to you." I continued to bury my head in my meal. However, she wouldn't let me off and tried to get on friendly terms with me. "Hey, let me show you. These are the photos I took in Dubai the other day. These nice selfies are all original. When Brother Henry is free someday, I'll go with Brother Henry and take you along. Let's go together as a group of 3. She waved her phone in front of me. On her WeChat moments were photos of her wearing gorgeous clothes, showing off her jewelry. The waving phone made me dizzy. "By the way, do you also know this woman?" She flipped out a photo of a girl. "What ex-girlfriend? I feel like she and I don't even belong to the same species. She's so dark." She laughed. I glanced at it. It was a photo of Charlotte. In the Youth Volunteer Association, I had the best relationship with Charlotte. She always took good care of me. I lost my temper and couldn't hold back my emotions. "Are you done? Do you know where this photo was taken?" It was when she went to Cliff Village to help the villagers carry water. "Who do you think you were to dare to talk about Charlotte?" Sophia was stunned for a moment and then screamed into my ear, "Why are you talking about me? Are you crazy?" Everyone at the table fell silent, and all eyes were fixed on us. She was so angry that her face turned red. She splashed the tea in her hand towards me. The scalding tea splashed on my hand. I slapped the chopsticks on the table with a loud noise. I stood up and left. Charlotte once told me that if you argue with a self-conceited person, you'll turn into a frog in the well yourself. I suppressed my anger and didn't argue with her. After leaving the private room, I walked out aimlessly and wandered around the streets for a long time. The winter night wind was always cold. I wrapped my down jacket tightly and crunched on the snow. When I reached an open space, I squatted on the ground with my arms folded. Shivering, I sent a WeChat message to the minister, apologized to him, and said that I had left. I messed up the nice gathering. The tea on my hand was no longer scalding. Actually, besides being angry, I also felt a bit of jealousy. Just one. Brother Henry from Sophia made me lose completely. Elder brother Henry. It was clearly me who called you that first. I really like Henry. I want to throw myself into his arms, hold his arm, kiss his cheek, and be intimate with him in bed. I really like Henry. The phone battery is only at 10%, so I turned it off directly and stared blankly at the snow scene in front of me. If Henry can't find me, will he be worried? Forget it. Who cares if he's worried? He still has that girlfriend to take care of. I tilted my head back and stared at the boundless night. A gaze landed on me. I turned around and was slightly stunned. Why are you here? William was standing behind me without my noticing. Senior, I followed you all the way here. I scolded him. Why are you following me? What about now? He asked me. Can't you be with me now? I clenched my fists and lowered my head. I know that Senior Lin takes very good care of you. I admit that I can't treat you better than him, but he has a girlfriend, William said. My mind was in a mess. I know he has a girlfriend. I know. So stop talking about it. The winter night wind made my head feel groggy. I wiped my face hard and started talking nonsense. Don't you have the option of having sex? I'll do it with you. I walked directly up to him and elbowed him. Fine, I'll be with you. Did you hear that? Without saying a word, William held my face and kissed me. Since I started college, I haven't been in an intimate relationship with anyone. A simple kiss from him instantly awakened the desires I had suppressed for years. When our lips parted, my face was so red it seemed to be smoking, and my eyes were a bit dazed. I lay on William's shoulder in a daze, so much so that I had hallucinations. I seemed to see Henry. He was standing under the streetlight. I'm really crazy. I shook my head desperately and continued to immerse myself in desire. I actively wrapped my arms around William's neck and kissed him passionately. I thought I would sink into the interweaving of lips and tongues, but my mind was full of Henry. I closed my eyes, and I opened my eyes. Henry still appeared in my sight. He was standing under the streetlight, his leather shoes stepping on the snow, and he was only wearing a thin shirt. He was looking at me expressionlessly. I closed my eyes again, and I opened my eyes. Henry undid 2 buttons of his shirt and then strode towards us, bringing up a gust of wind as he walked. I was stunned for a while and slowly pushed William away. This was really Henry. He strode towards us. His shirt buttons were undone, revealing his neck and collarbone, and his skin was frozen red. Henry kept squinting and smiling at us. With his back to the light of the streetlight, half of his face was shrouded in shadow. I couldn't help but shiver. After he walked over, he suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist tightly, then pulled me forcefully towards him. He pulled so roughly that I staggered and almost fell. I found that his hand was cold and his body temperature was low. He pulled me behind him, shielding me with his body. Then he smiled at William and said, "Sorry, Oliver is drunk." I didn't drink. Before I could say the word wine, I shut up because the hand holding my wrist tightened more and more. My wrist hurt badly. I tried to break free but failed. When I looked up, I saw him staring down at me. There was a smile on his lips, but his eyes were cold. Henry gave William another gentle smile and said, "Junior, I'll take my drunk friend away first. Don't take what happened today to heart. He's like this when he's drunk. I hope you can understand." After he finished speaking, he pulled me away, tightly clutching my wrist. He took big steps and walked very fast, dragging me all the way to the parking lot. "Get in the car." His voice was deep. After opening the car door, I sat in the passenger seat. There was a new box of Coke pushed under my feet. I stared at the Coke and then at my own wrist. The skin was pinched red by him, and there were even fingerprints left. Through the reflection on the car window, I saw Henry resting his hand outside the window, leaning back on the seat, and staring intently at me. I felt uncomfortable under his gaze and covered my face with my hand. Looking out of the window, both car windows were opened halfway. Winter nights were always quiet, accompanied only by the sound of the wind. He didn't start the car, and I didn't move either. The two of us fell into silence. Occasionally, people passed by, accompanied by noisy laughter and chatter. "Does it still hurt? Aren't you cold?" We spoke at the same time. I rubbed my wrist and stole a glance at him. "It doesn't hurt." He gave a soft grunt and replied, "I'm not cold." Then he habitually raised his hand, wanting to ruffle my hair. At this moment, I felt awkward because Henry had seen me kissing a man. The moment he raised his hand, I trembled and suddenly shrank my neck, turning my head sharply. Thud! I hit my head on the car window. When I rubbed my forehead and looked back, both Henry and I were a bit stunned. Henry's broad palm paused in midair and didn't come down for a long time. He rubbed his thumb and index finger, then stiffly lowered his arm. I saw a hint of bitterness suddenly appear in the smile on his face, and his voice also became hoarse. "What are you hiding from? I won't touch you." Under the illumination of the street lights at night, Henry's lips were pale, maybe from the cold. We both turned our heads and looked out of the car window. After a long time, I said, "Henry, I like men." "Yeah." His voice was still hoarse. Unconsciously, I dug my nails into my palm, and the sound of my heart beating was deafening. I repeated, "Henry, I like men." "Yeah." His voice was faint. After another long time, so long that there were only a few scattered vehicles left in the parking lot, Henry slowly started the car. It was silent all the way.